Mortgage, the official home loan lender of the Georgia Bulldogs, presents today's sports report. On today's program, we'll talk about University of Georgia football and more. And now, from the studios of UGA Football News on Facebook and Instagram, here's the host of today's sports report, Chris Hall.
Chris Hall here with you for UGA Football News on Facebook and Instagram. And welcome to a little dog talk tonight as we pop in here to talk a little bit about the University of Georgia and our great football team. Of course, in the upcoming 2022 season, Georgia is the defending national champions. How does that sound? That sounds pretty good to me, as Georgia will be teeing it up in just a couple of weeks against Oregon at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's the Chick-fil-A kickoff game, and it should be a doozy. And we're getting ever so closer to the time when the University of Georgia will tee it up again. And here we go for another football season. Tonight, we do have a stack of stuff to talk with you about, a little bit about some of the things happening with the University of Georgia as we get ever so closer to that first game of the season. Glad to have you along with us. It still feels like summertime in South Georgia, but actually today the temperature's moderated just a little bit, maybe a snippet, maybe a small little smidgen of fall is in the air. We don't know. It felt maybe not quite as oppressive today as it has been in the past few days. And so that tells you, hey, we're on the hunt for fall and, of course, football in the fall. By the way, high school football has kicked off in the state of Georgia. A lot of teams had their first games this past Friday. Boy, I tell you, that's some good football in the state of Georgia, good high school football in the state of Georgia. One of the states that produces a whole lot of prospects for colleges, major colleges, and on down the line from there. I guess probably if you could stack up the states that have the most prospects coming out of high school for college football, you would have you would stack up the states. You would have Ohio, you would have Florida, you would have Georgia, you would have Texas. Just because of the sheer size of it, you would have the state of California, Pennsylvania. But I tell you, there's no better high school football in the nation that is played than what is played in the state of Georgia each year, just producing a bumper crop, if you can put it that way, of high school football players that are ready to go to the next level. So high school football is underway in the state of Georgia. And, of course, there's a lot of hydrating going on as far as practice is concerned and in the games as well. In fact, there's a rule in the state of Georgia that at a particular time in the game, the officials call a timeout, and they call it a hydration timeout. And the managers bring out hydration for the players, just trying to keep everyone safe. And, of course, obviously, that is a very good thing. Well, we're just a couple of weeks away from that first game of the season. Here we go, Georgia and Oregon, kicking off at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. 3:30, September 3rd. It'll be on ABC. Boy, we can't wait. We can't wait to get the season underway, and can't wait for that game. We'll talk a little bit about that game. We'll talk a little bit about Oregon. We have, some perspective on that team that Dan Lanning will put on the field. Of course, Dan Lanning last year, the defensive coordinator for the University of Georgia, moving on to Eugene, Oregon to become the head football coach for the Oregon Ducks. And as chance would have it, you don't schedule these things like a year in advance. This game against Oregon was scheduled many seasons ago. And as chance would have it, here you go. Dan Lanning, the defensive coordinator from the University of Georgia last season, going to be the head coach at the University of Oregon this season. And here we go. The first game of the season. You got Dan Lanning, Kirby Smart, Oregon and Georgia meeting in that first game of the year for Georgia and Oregon. We'll talk a little bit about that game. We'll talk also about some other games that'll be coming up in this weekend. Actually, this is week 0. This coming weekend is like week 0, they call it, for college football. So we have some football games coming up, and we'll make some prognostications of the upcoming games for this coming weekend. We're terrible at it. Usually really flub the dub when it comes to making predictions, but we're going to give it another shot as we look forward to the opening season, the opening weekend, rather, of the college football season, the 2022 college football season. But first, let's get to some news around the University of Georgia. That is what we are most interested in. So let's talk about it a little bit. True freshman running back Andrew Paul suffered a torn ACL. You probably have heard about this. Georgia had a scrimmage over the weekend, and Andrew Paul, freshman running back from Texas, big addition to our last recruiting class, cut and turned, and then he tore an ACL in one of his knees. He's going to have surgery. That, of course, means that Andrew Paul will be lost for the upcoming 2022 season. The surgery and the recovery will take, of course, several months, and we wish Andrew Paul well. The freshman running back was having a pretty good camp, pretty impressive running back, and a pretty impressive young man as well, a high-character young man. And we just hate it when we hear things like this, when you have a season-ending injury before the season even begins. And that is what happened to Andrew Paul this past weekend in Athens. So bless his heart. We'll be praying for Andrew that he will recover very, very quickly. Now, what about the running back situation now with the University of Georgia, with Andrew Paul going down with that ACL tear? Well, the running back situation for the University of Georgia doesn't look too shabby, doesn't look too bad, to be honest with you. Paul was relatively down on the depth chart. He's a true freshman, feeling his way into getting into the college game. So, he would probably had seen some playing time in the upcoming season, but he was down on the depth chart as far as running backs are concerned. So you have Kenny McIntosh, you have Kendall Milton. Kendall Milton's been nursing an injury, but he should be okay for the first game of the season. You have Dajon Edwards, that stalwart that's been there forever for the University of Georgia. He just won't go away. He is bound and determined to be on the field for the Bulldogs. Then you have Branson Robinson. He is a freshman running back, and man, what a specimen he is as far as his physical appearance is concerned. In fact, Kirby Smart was talking about Branson Robinson, and he says he's so well built, he's so physically fine-tuned, muscles everywhere. Kirby Smart said hitting him is like hitting a tree trunk, a moving tree trunk. So, Georgia's going to be okay as far as the running back position is concerned. Of course, you don't want any more injuries, especially to our junior and senior guys. But you have Kenny McIntosh, Kendall Milton, Dajon Edwards. They're going to get most of the work at running back for UGA. Branson Robinson certainly will be in there as well. You have a couple of other guys kind of down the ladder a little bit on the depth chart. So Georgia should be okay as far as the running back position is concerned. And that, of course, obviously, is a very important, position for the offense for the University of Georgia. But I think we'll be okay. All right, moving on. Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State. Or Alabama, Ohio State, and Georgia. Those are the three teams that almost every outlet is predicting to make the college football playoffs this season. Now, I mean, every outlet you go to, every media outlet you go to, every magazine you go to, and all of these places that make these prognostications for what's going to happen in the 2022 season. As far as, the rankings are concerned and the end of the season rankings, and they're making those predictions even before the season begins, almost all of them say that you'll have Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State as the top three teams in the country when everything is said and done. They'll make the playoffs. And then they kind of debate a little bit on who's going to make the fourth spot. Usually it is Clemson. Sometimes it's Oklahoma. Sometimes it's Notre Dame. Now, Paul Feinbaum kind of blew his top when, he saw in the latest AP poll that Notre Dame was up there. Notre Dame highly touted in the AP poll, preseason poll. He said they just don't belong there, shouldn't be there. It's something that is particularly found in the AP poll, the preseason poll. They always put Notre Dame way up there, no matter what kind of season they had or what it's going to be like for Notre Dame in the coming season. He says he just doesn't get it. So anyway, you got some privilege given to Notre Dame by the national press, and that's just the way it's been. And I suppose that's the way it's always going to be. So you have Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, maybe Clemson, maybe Oklahoma, and there's some other teams that are bandied around that is being predicted to make the college football playoffs. Well, we've done some reviewing of the national media outlets, their bowl projections for this coming season. And so we kind of put them all together. So we'll share with you what some of these media outlets are saying, how they see things play out for the 2022 football season for the University of Georgia and these other teams. Of course, this really is, it means nothing because you got to play the season. It means nothing, but it's good to kind of look and say, okay, this is what we think is going to happen in the 2022 season. Pete Futak of College Football News has this prediction. He says Georgia will play Alabama in the college football playoff semifinal in the Chick-fil-A Bowl. This is his prediction for the coming season. He says Georgia and Alabama will play in the college football playoff semifinal. That's the Chick-fil-A Bowl, Peach Bowl in Atlanta. He projects that Alabama will win that game and advance to the national title game, probably against Ohio State. Now, that's what Pete Futak of College Football News says. ESPN says that Georgia will make the college football playoff. They have two guys, Kyle Bonagra, and Mark Slaybach, and I probably destroyed that first name. Anyway, Kyle and Mark for ESPN. Here's their projection. They have Georgia versus Ohio State in a college football semifinal. The projected outcome, both project that Ohio State will win that game and advance to the national title. So, a lot of these outlets are saying that Georgia will make the playoffs, but they won't make the national title game. We shall see. Sporting News. Bill Bender of Sporting News says that Georgia and Ohio State will meet in the college football playoff semifinal. He says Ohio State will win, and they will advance to the national title game. CBS Sports has Georgia making the college football playoff. Jerry Palm of CBS Sports. He projects that Georgia and Ohio State will be in the college football playoff semifinal. He doesn't have a prediction for who will win that game or who will advance. He just, he says, these are my teams that are going to make it. So he has Georgia making the college football playoffs and playing Ohio State. 247 Sports. These guys, Brad Crawford of 247 Sports, has Georgia taking on Ohio State in the college football playoff semifinal. They project Ohio State wins and advances to the national title game. So, Athlon Sports has Georgia making the college football playoffs. Steve Lasson of Athlon Sports, he predicts that Georgia and Ohio State will play in a college football playoff semifinal. He doesn't have a prediction on who will win that game. He's not ready to make that prediction, but he does have Georgia making the college football playoffs. Brett McMurphy has Georgia making the college football playoffs. This is Brett McMurphy of the Action Network. He has Georgia and Ohio State in a semifinal. He projects that Ohio State will win and Ohio State will advance to the national title game. And so one guy for ESPN, I forgot, who was that guy? He did not even have Georgia in the top 10. And he had Ohio State number 1, Alabama number 2. That was his projection for how things are going to wind up. Not the beginning. He says, not as the season begins, but he has at the end of it all. He says at the end of it all, he had this guy from ESPN. I forget his name. I was going to make a big deal out of that, but I forgot the guy's name. Anyway, he has at the end of the season, he has Ohio State number 1, Alabama number 2, has Tennessee in there, but he doesn't have Georgia in his top 10. So, that's kind of an outlier for all of these. ESPN has what it calls its SP Plus projections. Now, it's a formula that they use, stability in the coaching ranks, recruiting, how things are going, like with the spring drills, preparing for our fall drills, preparing for the upcoming season. So ESPN has a SP Plus projections. It's a computerized thing. This dude, what is his name? Brad Crawford or somebody like that. Anyway, he puts all this information into a computer. He has this, this formula that he uses, and then, it kicks it out and it makes these predictions and this is the preseason projections. Who are the best teams as the season begins. And it's based on this computerized thing. Well, he has Alabama. The SP Plus has Alabama number 1, Georgia number 2. There you go. Ohio State 3, Oklahoma, Clemson, Michigan, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Kentucky, Utah, Penn State, and Arkansas. That's the top 14 teams in the ESPN preseason projections. So the SP Plus, and a lot of people, pay attention to this because it's, scientific, computerized, yada, yada, yada. So as the season begins, the SP Plus projections has Alabama, the best team in the country, followed by Georgia, Ohio State, Oklahoma, Clemson, Michigan, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss, interestingly, is the number 9 team in the country. Kind of interesting. Tennessee, number 10, very interesting. Kentucky, number 11, interesting. Then you have Utah, Penn State, Arkansas, number 14. So there you go. All right, the Georgia Bulldogs obviously will open up the 2022 season against Oregon at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Saturday, September 3rd. It'll be on ABC Network. Just taking a look at the 2022 schedule for the University of Georgia. UGA has 6 home games in Athens this season. And it's not particularly a strong schedule. A couple of games, obviously are going to be good games, tight games, tough games for Georgia. But, all in all, it's not really an eye-popping home schedule for UGA. The Bulldogs will host Samford September 10th, Kent State September 24th, Auburn, obviously, that'll be an interesting game, October the 8th. Vanderbilt, October 15th, Tennessee, November 5th, Georgia Tech, November 26th. The homecoming game for Georgia is against Vanderbilt. Poor old Vandy. When they go on the road, often they are the opponents for whatever team they're playing for their homecoming game. That's, that you pick a team you think you can beat for your homecoming game. So anyway, Georgia will take on Vanderbilt Saturday, October 15th. That's the homecoming game. Now, that's the home schedule for the University of Georgia. So not really an eye-popping kind of thing, although you have Auburn and Tennessee in there. So here's the complete schedule for the University of Georgia. We'll run over it right quick. Saturday, September 3rd, Georgia and Oregon, 2:30 Central Time. That's Central Time. 3:30 Eastern Time on ABC. Todd Blackledge. Yeah, Sean McDonough, Todd Blackledge, and somebody else, will be on the sidelines for that game. Should be a great game. Obviously, it's going to be a great game. Highly anticipated. We'll talk about it in just a moment. Then Saturday, September 10th, Samford at Georgia. That's a 4 o'clock Eastern Time game. That'll be on the SEC Network. Why is this in Central Time? Why are they... It's coming from a source in Central Time. Well, okay. Anyway, Saturday, September 17th, Georgia at South Carolina. That'll be at 12 noon. Why is that a 12 noon game? Why is that a 12 noon game? That should be like a 7 o'clock feature game. Georgia at South Carolina. That'll be on ESPN. Saturday, September 24th, Kent State at Georgia. That, again, will be a 12 noon game. And that's going to be... that's the one where your mom and your pop and your grandma and your grandpa is going to be calling you saying, "Where's Georgia? I can't find Georgia on the television." Well, the simple fact is they're not going to be on television. It'll be on ESPN Plus and SEC Network Plus. In other words, you can only see that game. If you're not in the stadium, you can only see that game on the computer, on the internet, as a good friend of mine says. So, there you go. I don't know why they do that, but it's Georgia. It's Georgia. It's the defending national champion playing. Should that really be true for Georgia? But it is. Saturday, October 1st, Georgia at Missouri. The time is to be, all the rest of these now are times to be determined except for the Georgia-Florida game. Saturday, October 8th, Auburn at Georgia. October 15th, Vanderbilt at Georgia. October 29th, Georgia versus Florida. That'll be in Jacksonville. That'll be the 3:30 game on CBS. By the way, did you see that TV deal? The Big Ten signed with what? Fox, ESPN, and who else? Is it NBC? $1 billion a year? $1 billion a year to watch Northwestern and Iowa State? $1 billion a year. Yeah, we were going to talk about that, but I didn't get all the details. But anyway, let's see. Then you got Saturday, November 5th. You have Tennessee at Georgia. Saturday, November 12th, Georgia at Mississippi State at Starkville. None of the times for the latter games are determined yet. That'll be determined by the network, the networks that are carrying them. Saturday, November 19th, Georgia at Kentucky. Interesting game. Saturday, November 26th, Georgia Tech at Georgia. So there you go. That's the schedule for the University of Georgia. All right. Now, on September 3rd, it's Georgia and Oregon. Let's talk a little bit about Oregon. We did a little research about the Ducks. All right, they got 3 quarterbacks. Bo Nix, of course, the transfer from Auburn. Georgia is very familiar with Bo Nix. He is up, he is down, he's hot, he's cold, he can beat you, he can he can be the reason you beat, whoever he's playing for. Hot and cold kind of quarterback. You got quarterback Bo Nix, redshirt freshman Ty Thompson, and quarterback Jay Butterfield. He's a something. What is he, a junior, senior, something like that. So, and probably, most people are expecting Bo Nix, a fourth-year junior, to be the favorite to be the starting quarterback for Oregon. So you'll probably see Bo Nix. Georgia's very familiar with Bo Nix. A good athlete, good arm, can run, can throw. Just a little inconsistent when it comes to playing quarterback. You never know what you're going to get with Bo Nix. Like a box of chocolates. Okay, anyway. As far as running backs are concerned, Oregon's leading returning rusher is a sophomore, Byron Caldwell. He had 471 yards rushing last season on 61 carries as a freshman. And then they have some other running backs, picked up a couple out of the portal. At receiver now, Oregon has a pretty solid nucleus at receiver. They have a guy by the name sophomore Troy Franklin, 18 catches last year, 209 yards, 2 touchdowns. Chris Hudson had 31 catches, 419 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And a guy by the name of Seven McGee, who's kind of like a hybrid athlete. He can be in the wide receiver spot, in the slot as a running back. So that's their receivers. Pretty solid. The offensive line is also very solid, returning 5 players who started all or most of 2021. All of the offensive line, and they've had some injuries there, so they're dealing with some injuries. But all of the offensive line for Oregon are either 5th or 6th-year seniors. Now, these are the starters, the front of the line guys for the offensive line. It's composed, I saw this quote, it's composed, their offensive line is a unit composed of grown men who have played a lot of tough football. So the offensive line, it may be pretty good for Oregon. The defense for Oregon was okay in 2021. Most, Pac-12 teams are just okay when it comes to defense. The defense for Oregon finished 9th in scoring defense, 5th in rushing defense in last season in 2021. The Ducks front 7 still has some serious dudes. Their defensive line, 3 of their defensive line players, this is on defense now. The 3 of their defensive line players sat out this spring with injuries. But the front 7 for Oregon, as far as the defense is concerned, have pretty good players. Linebackers are pretty tough at linebacker. Noah Sewell, who was actually a 5-star recruit that Kirby Smart really went after. Didn't get him. He went to Oregon. Noah Sewell is returning. He's a pretty good linebacker. He had 114 tackles last season, 36 tackles for a loss, and 4 sacks. So, he's a pretty good player. Also at linebackers, Justin Flo, another 5-star UGA target that Georgia missed on. He went to Oregon for some unknown reason. Why would you go to Oregon? I mean, you go to Eugene. I've never been to Eugene. Understand it's a okay place. But would you pick Eugene over Athens? Nay, he says. Anyway, Justin Flo, another 5-star UGA target. He's an elite, he's a pretty good guy at linebacker. Then at the edge, some edge rushers to watch. Braden Swinson had 24 tackles for a loss and 3 sacks in 2021. DJ Johnson, he's another edge rusher for Oregon. The secondary has some question marks. Christian Gonzalez, a transfer from Colorado. He started all 12 games for Buffalo, for the Buffs rather, the Colorado Buffaloes. He's transferred to Oregon. Dante Manning is another likely starter at the corner spot. He's had an injury, coming off an injury. And Bennett Williams, one of the best safeties in the country, before going down to an injury in week 4 last season, he'll be back. So Oregon, there you go. That's Oregon now. They're on the wrong side of the country, on the left side of the country. But they look. It's going to be a tough game. I think it's going to be when Georgia plays Oregon. I think it's the first half's going to be filled with mistakes and sputtering and feeling your way and the anticipation of a first game. And Georgia's going to be ready to go. Oregon's going to be ready to go. I think you're going to have some, sputtering and stops and starts, and as the game begins, things will settle down. I look for Georgia to win. They're 17. I think the last I saw, a 17-point favorite to win that game against Oregon. I just don't see that. I don't see Georgia winning by 17. I think Georgia will win, let's say, by 10 points. And so that should be, there you go. That's Georgia and Oregon. Excuse me. The pollen is here in South Georgia. So you always keep a good bottle of water nearby. Excuse me. Okay, did you see Sports Illustrated? Are they still producing that magazine? I mean, is it all online now, or do they actually have a magazine? They do? Okay. What is it? Comes out once a month or something? Okay. Anyway, this year's pro football preview, college football preview from Sports Illustrated features Stetson Bennett IV on the cover. Pretty good picture too. Yeah, pretty good picture. That was pre-haircut. Yeah, they took a picture of Stetson before he got that buzz cut, that GI cut that he has now. So anyway, Stetson Bennett's on the cover of the Sports Illustrated's college football preview. So yeah, you can pick it up if you want to. I just read that stuff online, Okay, so you got Stetson at quarterback. And by the way, from all we've heard, not only from Coach Smart, but also the coaching staff, but just from people who have observed the fall camp, Stetson Bennett is having a phenomenal fall camp. He's looking very, very sharp, very confident, very determined, ready to go. The poor guy's getting dissed everywhere you turn. The top quarterbacks in the SEC, they have him down like number 10. Seriously. There are 9 or 10 better quarterbacks in the SEC than Stetson Bennett. I don't think so. I think some guy or some organization put out the top quarterbacks in the college, all the major college teams, and Stetson was like number 49. Are you seriously kidding me? That there are 48 better quarterbacks in the country than Stetson Bennett? I don't think so. But he's having a great camp, and he's on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Seriously, he's on the cover of Sports Illustrated. So there you go. So who's going to back him up? The quarterback room for the University of Georgia, everybody was wanting Arch Manning. That would have been super. It would have been great. It would have been hot. By the way, we're hearing Arch Manning he's not going to be the starter. at Texas, obviously, for the 2022 season because he's still playing high school. But the projection is he'll be redshirted his first year at Texas in 2023. We don't know that. Who knows that? But that's what people are saying anyway. Did Arch and the guys? Did they have their first? What is it? Bishop Newman High School or something like that? Did they have their first game Friday? You don't know? Okay. So who's going to back up Stetson Bennett? Carson Beck or Brock Vandegrift? Both of them are having a very good camp, and both of them are getting reps with the number one team, which is important. And so here you go. You got Carson Beck, a 6'4", 215-pound sophomore, pocket passer, quick throw ball distributor, pretty good quarterback, is having a great fall. Brock Vandegrift, 6'3", 205-pound redshirt freshman, likes to move, throws on the move, can run, can pass, two different kinds of quarterbacks. Both of them are having a very impressive fall camp. So if God forbid, if Stetson Bennett goes down with an injury, you got those guys that can step in. And you got Gunnar Stockton. And just by his name, I mean, he's a quarterback by the name of Gunnar Stockton. Just by the name the kid has, he should be a great college football quarterback. Gunnar Stockton. Hi, I'm Gunnar. I play quarterback for the University of Georgia. The NIL deals ought to be coming in for that dude, for sure. So if Stetson Bennett goes down, Georgia's good. Georgia's good. We're going to be good. All right. All-American, preseason All-Americans. The Associated Press has put out its preseason All-American team. Alabama leads the way. They had more than any other school on the preseason All-American team. Quarterback Bryce Young, Will Anderson Jr., Jordan Battle, defensive back, Eli Ricks. Those four guys from Georgia, or from Alabama rather, were first team players on the Associated Press preseason All-American team. Ohio State, second behind Alabama. 3 first-team selections, 5 players overall. You know they have a first team, second team, third team. Do they have a fourth team? I don't think so. Georgia has 3 players picked on the first team. This is the AP preseason All-American team. Tight end Brock Bowers, defensive tackle Jalen Carter, cornerback Keely Ringo. Nolan Smith from Georgia made the second team All-American, preseason All-American team for the Associated Press. And by the way, ESPN put Michael Williams, defensive lineman for the University of Georgia, on its true freshman All-American team. So Georgia well represented on these preseason All-American teams. Georgia is well represented. So, the transfer portal. Hey, the transfer portal. I love that commercial last year, that Dr. Pepper commercial where the player was entering into the transfer portal and the guys were trying to talk him out of it. You're going to get more playing time. And he goes into the portal and disappears. Then a guy comes out of the portal and he's a kicker. And he wants to come play for whatever team they have. And they say, kicker, really? No, I think we're good. But he has a case of Dr. Pepper, and they say, yes, come on. We need you. Yeah. So anyway, the transfer portal, it's a thing now in college football. Well, you might be interested in this. Here's a list of major schools, major colleges, major universities, football teams that did not add any transfers through the transfer portal during the offseason, according to 247 Sports. According to 247 Sports, there were 4 major college football teams that did not add anyone to their roster through the transfer portal. Those 4 teams are Army, Navy, Air Force, and the University of Georgia. How about that? So there's 4 major college football teams that had no one come to their team through the transfer portal. Even Dabo Sweeney, who hates the portal apparently, from the University of Clemson, they added one. Clemson added one guy through the portal. But 4 major college teams didn't add anyone through the portal. Air Force, Army, Navy, and Georgia. So what does that mean? Well, it means apparently Georgia didn't think they needed anybody through the portal. That's what you do. Now, Alabama, got some pretty significant players through the portal. Georgia didn't add anyone. So you hope it doesn't come back, to maybe bite Georgia. But anyway, Georgia felt like they're good. They're good. And it could be that they were interested in some players that went into the portal, but those players decided to go somewhere else. And when you have success and when you have a pretty stout roster like Georgia, if you're going into the transfer portal, you want to play. You want to go somewhere to play. You're not going into the portal to sit on the bench. You're going to play. You feel like you could maybe play at somewhere else. So if you don't think you can go to Georgia and play, why go through the portal to go there? You'll go to where you think you can play. Now, again, Alabama, it picked up 4, I think, through the portal. Pretty impressive guys too. So we'll see. But Army, Navy, Air Force, and you can understand those will be schools that get no one through the portal. Army, Navy, and Air Force. You can understand that, but Georgia is the other team. Kind of interesting. Some new rules for the college football season coming up. We'll run down these quickly. Players ejected in the second halves of games for targeting might not be suspended for the first half of the next game. That's the way it is now. If you're penalized for targeting in the second half of a game and thrown out, you have to miss the first half of the next game. Well, now that may not be the case depending on the results of an appeal. In other words, the teams can make an appeal, that their players shouldn't be penalized for sitting out the first half of the next game if they're thrown out in the second half of the previous game for targeting. So they'll be in an appeal process. So a player may not have to sit out the first half of the next game. Here's another rule change. Schools and conferences can report the potential faking of injuries to the National Coordinator of Officials, which could lead to penalties for the program involved. In other words, if a team thinks that players on the other team are faking injuries, to get timeouts or something like that, they can make a complaint to the Coordinator of Officials. And if the Coordinator of Officials looks at the case and say, yeah, these guys were faking it, the team that is guilty of that could be penalized in some way. We don't know. Only linemen and stationary backs inside the tackle box may block below the waist in the coming season. That's a new rule. Ball carriers who simulate a feet-first slide like former Pittsburgh quarterback Kenny Puckett did in the ACC championship game will be ruled down at the spot. Puckett, he acted like he was going to slide like quarterbacks do to avoid being hit. He faked a slide and jumped up before he actually slid and kept running. Now, if a player does that, if a ball carrier does that, if they fake a feet-first slide, they're going to be ruled down, whether they go down or not. There you go. Defensive holding now accompanies an automatic first down in addition to the 10-yard penalty. So if you got a team that's, it's 3rd and 20, and you got a defensive holding, it's a 10-yard penalty, but now also it will be an automatic first down. I didn't know it wasn't already, but there you go. Replay officials may adjust the game clock if a ruling is overturned with less than 2 minutes remaining in the game or first half. That's a new rule. Okay. Illegal touching by an ineligible player now accompanies a loss of down in addition to the 5-yard penalty. Illegal touching by an ineligible player. You'll now lose a down as well as a 5-yard penalty. Okay, so that's some new rules for the coming season. All right, this coming weekend is week 0 of college football. Week 0. And then the major action will start the next week when Georgia, Alabama and Texas, they'll be playing that first weekend after. They'll be playing later that night after Georgia plays Oregon. So here's some of the matchups for week 0. This coming weekend, football starts. College football starts this coming weekend. You have Austin Peay at Western Kentucky. And that'll be 12 o'clock on CBS Sports Network. So if you get that, you can watch Austin Peay at Western Kentucky. You have this coming weekend. I guess Saturday? Is this Saturday? Yeah, this coming Saturday, you have Nebraska versus Northwestern in Dublin, Ireland. Seriously. So Nebraska, the Cornhuskers, taking on Northwestern in Dublin, Ireland. That'll be on TV, 12:30 p.m. on Fox. That's interesting. Idaho State at UNLV. That'll be 3:30 p.m. on CBS Sports Network. UConn at Utah State. These are all Saturday. UConn at Utah State, 4 p.m. on FS1. Wyoming at Illinois, 4 o'clock on the Big Ten Network. Duquesne at Florida State, 5 p.m. on the ACC Network. Charlotte at Florida Atlantic, 7 p.m. on CBS Sports Network. Florida A&M at North Carolina, 8:15 p.m. on the ACC Network. North Texas at UTEP, University of Texas at El Paso, 9 p.m. on Stadium. What is that? What is Stadium? Is that a network? I don't know. Nevada at New Mexico State, 10 p.m. on ESPN2. Vanderbilt at Hawaii, 10:30 p.m. CBS Sports Network. So there you go. So we have some prognostications. That's a lot of fun. Why not? I mean, I don't really know a lot about these teams, but we'll give it a shot. So what about Nebraska versus Northwestern? Nebraska versus Northwestern. This is in Dublin, Ireland. That'll be interesting. I'm going to go with Nebraska. They have a quarterback, Casey Thompson, Texas, transfer from Texas. And also they got a pretty good pass rusher. That guy Mathis, Ochon Mathis from TCU. Northwestern kind of rebuilding. Nebraska and Northwestern both finished 3-9 last season. Nebraska didn't do any better than that. I thought they did better than that. They were 3-9. Wow. Duquesne at Florida State. Boy, I tell you what, if Florida State loses to Duquesne, where is Duquesne, by the way? Is that Iowa? It's somewhere up there. Duquesne at Florida State, you anticipate Florida State should win. But boy, Florida State has been kind of wild in the last few seasons. So you got to go with Florida. Florida State, obviously. UConn at Utah State. UConn, they had, 2 wins last. Did they win 2 games? They're projected to have maybe 3 this season. Utah State, it's interesting. Was it Utah State? Utah State got a whole new coaching staff, right? And in fact, they beat Oregon State in a bowl game last year. So I got to go with Utah State over UConn. Wyoming and Illinois. Wyoming at Illinois. What do you think? Wyoming at Illinois. I like Cowboys, so I'm going to go with Wyoming. Everybody's picking Illinois, but I'm going with Wyoming. I like Cowboys. Charlotte at Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic, there's a little buzz about them maybe having a good season. Charlotte, I don't know anything about Charlotte. Florida Atlantic. UTEP, North Texas at UTEP. I don't know. UTEP. Go UTEP. What are they, the Miners? Aren't they the Miners or something? Nevada and New Mexico State. This is interesting. The entire coaching staff of Nevada went to Colorado State. Head coach and all of them. Left during the offseason, left Nevada and went to Colorado State. So, they have an entire new coaching staff. I mean, the whole bunch. Maybe even the Water Boys. I don't know. New Mexico State's been awful, terrible. They haven't won more than 3 games in a season since 2017, so you got to go with Nevada. Vanderbilt, the Commodores. Let's go, Commodores. Yeah, they're going to Hawaii. Man, that's got to be a tough one, hasn't it? I'm sure they're going to go early. They're probably already at Hawaii as we do this broadcast. Vanderbilt at Hawaii. Hawaii had a terrible season last year, and in fact, their coaching staff was just awful. I mean, there was a report. One of the players complained that the coaching staff at Hawaii had killed the love and passion for football by the players of Hawaii. Didn't they go on strike for a game? Didn't show up and didn't play a game or something like that? Hawaii had and obviously they've changed coaching staffs. And you got Vanderbilt, they're an SEC team. And I think Vanderbilt's going to win this game over Hawaii. Boy, that's a bold prediction, isn't it? All right, guys, that's a look at our program for today. Thank you for joining us here on UGA Football News on Facebook and Instagram. It's been a lot of fun to be with you. Talk a little bit about college football and more. Go Dogs, go Dogs, go Dogs. We're getting closer and closer to the Ducks and the Dogs coming up September 3rd. Be sure to stick with us at UGA Football News on Facebook and Instagram for everything you need when it comes to the University of Georgia, all the information you need, merchandising, stuff like that. Check us out, UGA Football News on Facebook and Instagram, UGAFBnews.com. That's our website. We appreciate you guys, and as we close our program, we do it as we always have done it. Go Dogs!
UGA Football News would like to thank Southeast Mortgage, the official home loan lender of the Georgia Bulldogs, for sponsoring our program today. When the time comes to finance or refinance your home, make the smart choice and get your home loan from Southeast Mortgage. Your friends at Southeast Mortgage are ready to help you. Visit southeastmortgage.com/UGA today for more information. This and previous editions of today's sports report can be found at UGA Football News on Facebook and Instagram, on many leading podcast apps, and at todaysportsreport.com. Be sure to join us for our next program as we keep you up to date with University of Georgia football and more. Until then, be safe and go Dogs.